Project for today is going to be this Sterling 3-inch trash pump. I don't really know if it's really any type of brand that I would recognize or anything. It's just kind of a Honda clone, 6.5 horse engine, and then it's just on a 3-inch water pump. It's probably just some type of generic pump. But the motor is stuck. Well, with a lot of these, it's not actually the engine that's stuck, it's usually the pump. If you were sucking water that had any rocks in it or anything, it can get in there and it'll stick that pump. So I think that first I'll do is we'll pull the spark plug out and look in there and see what we got going on. And then if it doesn't look bad inside the cylinder, I'll take this recoil off and we'll try to turn the motor backwards, because sometimes if there's a rock or something stuck in that impeller in there, you can get it kicked out of there. But if that's the case, then we'll have to tear apart this side and clean that out if there's any rocks or anything in there. And this thing looks like it's been sitting for a long time, so we'll have to flush the fuel system and everything, like the usual stuff. So I'll get you in a stand and we'll get started. So I'll pull this air cleaner off. It doesn't look too bad under there. Air cleaner's pretty clean. A lot of these pumps don't get a heck of a lot of hours on them. They're more something that you use once or twice a year. If you get any heavy rain or anything, you need to pump out an area. So now we'll pull the spark plug out of it. That doesn't look too bad. I don't see any rust or anything on it. That is one of the cheap torch spark plugs. I always replace those no matter what condition they're in. They seem to always cause problems. I can't really see any damage down in the cylinder. A lot of times you'll see scoring and stuff on the cylinders, if it's like a lack of oil or something. And I'll check the oil quick too, but yeah, it's full of oil. Another thing that'll make these seize up is if the float sticks and it'll wash oil into the cylinder, or gas into the cylinder, and it mixes with the oil, it'll thin it out, and if it gets run that way, it can seize them up too. But I'm kind of hopeful on this one that it's just the actual pump. So we'll pull this recoil off and see if we can turn it that way. So our recoil turns the engine over clockwise, so we'll go the other way. Yeah, I can kind of hear it in the pump. There must be a rock stuck in that pump. The piston's moving up and down fine, so I'm thinking we're just gonna have to take that pump side apart. So it looks like we got 4 bolts that are hold the housing on, and then we got 2 mounts down here that we'll have to take loose. I got a 1/2 inch, it must be a 13 millimeter, it's a little bit tight. So take that off. And we'll take these 2 bolts out. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. There's supposed to be a rubber mount under there. That must have been missing. I'm hoping this is dry in there. You never know what people are pumping with these things, so it's kind of hit or miss whether it's going to be some nasty stuff in there. I have to get a rubber mallet or something to pound that off of there. It's moving. There we go. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of rocks and stuff in there. That's a big one there. It's actually cracked like it was busting the rock. So go dump that out, and then I'll get the shop vac and vacuum that out. It looks like a bunch of leaves and stuff too to get out of there. So I found a piece, I think that's a piece of the impeller that fell out of there, so that's not really a good sign. And we got something wedged up in there. That almost looks like a piece of wood or something. But it does have bolts here, or nuts that come off. So I guess I'll try to take that off. Those don't look too promising, but we'll squirt them down with some penetrating lube and see what happens. So I soaked them down a little bit, and we'll see. Can't really get lube down in those very well. I thought they'd be 10 millimeter, but it seems a little bit loose. I'll grab a socket for them. I'll just grab the little ratchet and the 1/4 inch ratchet to see. Oh yeah, they come loose. It's kind of surprising. As rusty as they look. That one, the whole stud came out. I have to get a pry bar, get that the rest of the way out of there. It's just stuck on those studs, it's a little bit rusted. Work it back and forth carefully so I don't hurt those studs. And you can see, I think that's actually, that and this rock were what were sticking us. And then that piece of metal is actually out of the, I think it's out of the bottom, yeah, right there. Which, that might be okay just because that's, I think that's the inlet where it sucks the water in on the bottom. So it still might be okay. It might not pump quite as well as it did, but that should still work. The impeller is still in okay shape. Yeah, and it turns really nice now, so So this one should still be okay. This is cast iron, otherwise I would say I'll just probably weld that piece back in there, but I don't usually trust welding on cast iron. And there's quite a bit of pressure in there. If any little chunk of something, like even this piece of wood might pop that out of there if I welded it in. Or JB weld, I guess, would work for a while, but that would probably fail too. I'll get the rest of this stuff cleaned up and then we'll start putting it back together. Well, I got this side put back together. Now we'll focus on the fuel side. I'm gonna pop that carburetor off of there and probably that fuel tank too. It looked like there was some water in the fuel tank. I don't know how good you'll be able to, you can kind of see in there, it's real milky looking, so we'll take that off so we can drain that completely. I might try to drain it just to see how dry we can get it before, but I'll probably end up having to take it off of there. We'll pop this carburetor off and see what that looks like. We've got one bolt up here for that air cleaner housing. Might have to get oh, I got it. I was gonna say I might have to get a magnet to get that out. And it's got two nuts up front. And of course, this bar is in the way. I'm not sure how we're gonna get that off of there. So I double nutted this stud here that runs through. I'll grab another 10mm wrench and we'll tighten the two nuts against each other and then see if we can get that stud out of there to get the carburetor off. So I'll see if I can, hopefully this wrench is a little bit too thick to fit in there. Because what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get a hold of that inner nut and turn the inner one to turn the stud out. I'll try it this way, I guess. There's not really enough thread here to grab much with the second nut. And then get in there. I'll grab a different nut maybe and we'll try that. I'm just going to try putting a vice grips on the smooth part of the stud and see if we can break it loose that way. Sometimes they're pretty tight, other times you can get them. So that one came loose, the other side is still stuck, but I don't know if we can get it with just one of the studs out. There, that one came loose. That was the one I wanted to get. I think if I can get that inner one out, then I can pivot this around. It's kind of a dumb design. They could have just moved the pump over a ½ inch in this cage and it would have been easy to get this carburetor off. So now that I got the stud loose enough, we had enough room here. Now I did my trick with putting two nuts on it, then just turn it, tighten these two together, and then you can turn on the inner one. And that comes out. And I was hoping, I'm not sure with all this stuff in the way if we can, I don't think we can pivot that enough to get the whole thing out of there. I'll have to try to double nut the other side and get that one out too. So I'm doing the same thing on this side now that I've got some room. I loosen the stud some with the vice grip, and I can get it loose this way. Now we should be able to get that piece out of there. I'm trying to get the linkage on the carburetor. It just turns and then it should pop out of there, but this one's stuck there we go. I'll have to get something to pinch off that gas line so that doesn't leak on us when we get the carb off. Like that. There. Get that off of there. This choke lever ends up coming off, so don't drop that somewhere and can't find it. But looks like the choke moves like it should, and so does the throttle, so that's a good sign. So we'll get this on the bench and get cleaning that up. I'll take this float bowl off first. It's usually a good sign if that nut comes loose easily. It doesn't look too bad actually. Get that pin out for the float. The needle's got a little bit of corrosion on it, but that can be cleaned up. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It's just little bits of stuff in there. There's a main jet down in the center. We'll see if we can get that out of there. It's just a flathead screwdriver, but a lot of times they turn hard. If they are too bad, I usually will just leave them in there and try to clean it with it still in there, because you don't want to wreck that brass. But this one I was able to get loose. It does look like it's pretty well plugged. You can't really see any light through it. There's a tiny bit you can see through, but it should be a lot bigger hole than that. So I'm going to put all this in the ultrasonic cleaner, but I still like to run wire through everything. But usually do it after it's in the cleaner, but just running a wire through all the small orifices and stuff can make a big difference. And there's a Venturi tube that runs up also. You can kind of push it down from in the middle here, but those, if they're stuck too, you can just kind of leave it alone. But this one I was able to push out of there easy enough. There's holes in the sides of that should be clear, and then one down through the center. This one looks pretty clear, but it's a little bit dirty, so I'll soak that too. And then there's one more. This one doesn't have a, oh, it actually looks like our adjustment is missing. I'll have to find one of those to put in there, because there should be an adjustment screw here, and then we'll pull this screw out to get at the low speed circuit. This is just the idle adjustment here, but then underneath it there's this little plastic piece that we need to pop up out, and that has a hole down through the center of it also. There's a hole in the side you can shine a light through and kind of see through the center there. So we gotta make sure that's clear. I'm gonna poke, this is pretty little wire you have to poke through these. And then I'll flush all this out with carburetor cleaner spray also. But there's holes down inside there too that need to be clear. One hole connects to where your adjustment screw is that goes actually into the throat of the carburetor. And then the other one comes up through, is where it sucks the fuel up through the actual float bowl side. So I'll spray this out some and then I'll soak it in the ultrasonic cleaner and then we'll continue on. So I'm gonna have to pull the gas tank off it. It's got a bunch of, I don't even really know what it is. I think it's ethanol fuel that kind of turned into like a white powder in there. So I'm gonna rinse it out in the parts washer. I got it drained out and then that stuff was kind of left behind. But there's just 3 bolts that hold it on. There's 2 under here. And then there's the other one I just took out. And we should be able to lift the tank up, pull the line through like that. You can kind of see all that down in there. I'm not really sure what that is. It almost looks like sand, but it's not. But we'll get that rinsed out and then we'll be able to put it back together. I'm gonna take this gas line nipple off of here. There's a filter underneath this, and also this will let us be able to drain the tank fully when we put it in the washer. But there's your filter, which that isn't too bad. I'll spray that off with some carb clean or something. And there is a washer, an O-ring washer kind of deal underneath here that seals it. So we'll get that in the parts washer and we'll rinse it out. So I got the fuel tank cleaned out. Try to fish this fuel line back through here. It's one of the difficult parts of taking these off is getting the line back through. Once you can see it, you can usually grab onto it with the pliers or something. There you go. I'll bolt back here in first. And we'll put the 2 nuts on under here. The tank didn't get perfect, but it's good enough that it won't be plugging the filter or anything. Once these get real rusty, it can be pretty tough to get them completely cleaned out. So now we can start putting that carburetor back on. Got the carburetor all put back together, but we're gonna have to put it kind of all together at once here, being that we have to put those studs through. Get this linkage back in here in the spring. I'm gonna put the choke back on there like that. Gonna turn those halfway. Got this air cleaner piece. Has to go like that. To run. We've got a gasket here that has to go on the in between the carburetor and the air cleaner housing. We'll get that stud started. We'll do the other side. I'll take my double nut setup off of here. And I'm gonna have to tighten these all the way with the vice grips. Alright, I got those studs tightened up. I'll throw the nuts on the outside here. Got a bolt up in the top for the air cleaner. I'll throw our air cleaner back on. I've still got to find a new spark plug for this too. I think I'll leave the air cleaner cover off for now, maybe. I'll just throw it on there, I guess, so it won't bounce off the table. Hopefully it starts easy enough. And we'll put this recoil back on. Alright, I'm probably going to dump the oil on it right away since the oil did look kind of milky, like that had water in it too. So I'll do that, and then we'll put some gas in it and try firing it up. So I got it outside. I got to fill it up with water. You don't want to run these dry. It's hard on the pump to run them dry, so I don't know if it's going to take more than a gallon. It's a pretty big pump, so. Oh, it's running out the other end, so it must have got it full enough. I won't be able to run it too long just because we don't have a fresh water supply that we're sucking from. So put the plug back in the top here and we'll give it a try. And we got the gas on, I've got the choke on. Let's see if it fires up. Even idle's nice. Push a little water out of the top here. Like our shut-off switch doesn't work. Oh, looks like that shut-off switch might have some corrosion in it. I'll try firing it up one more time just to make sure it's not stuck in the off position now. Yeah, that still works okay. It just had a little bit of corrosion in it. Well, that's going to do it for this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.